Welcome to episode 146 of We Don't Die Radio. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international bestseller called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. If you haven't booked your ticket yet, I want to urge you to join me at a big afterlife event in Arizona this coming September 15th through 17th, 2017. Most of the cutting-edge investigators about the world of the afterlife will be there, and you don't want to miss it. And I don't want to miss meeting you. I would love to meet you face to face. So if you're interested, please go to afterlifestudies.org to find out more. Today on the show, we have a highly sought-after keynote speaker and master trainer of NLP and hypnosis. Her name is Carol Talbot. For more than 2 decades, she's helped thousands ignite their creativity and greatness. She is the author of Hitting the Wall and Breaking Through, and her latest book is called You, the Divine Genius. In this book, Carol explains that there's a huge intelligence network that lies within you that you can discover and tap into. Carol's website is caroltalbot.me. So Carol Talbot, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Thank you, Sandra. And I'm delighted to be here. And I was delighted to hear that it's episode 146 because I did a quick calculation. That's an 11 number. So that's quite auspicious.
Well, I don't know too much about 11 numbers.
Well, you know when often people see 1111 on their watch or their clock,
Right.
Which is said to be a sort of indicator that, you know, something's happening in their life. There's an awakening going on, so to speak.
Yes, I know of that number, and that and the number 333 I see very often, and so good to know.
Okay, well, here we are.
Here we are. So, Carol, would you mind telling us a little bit about you? Maybe where you are today, and how did you get into the wonderful world of human discovery?
Okay, well, as people can probably hear from my accent, I'm English, and I've retained that accent despite the fact that I've lived in the Middle East, in Dubai specifically, for about 26 years. Certainly wasn't the intention, sort of came for a 1-year contract, and 1 year led to 2 to 5 to 10, and then one day I woke up and it was like, and it's a wonderful place to be in terms of all the different cultures, beliefs, religions. Some people's perception of the Middle East is it's very strict here. The United Arab Emirates is a little bit different from other parts of the Middle East. It's quite liberal here, and I always feel very privileged because they honor when we celebrate Christmas, whether we have the Indians celebrating Diwali, all the different traditions. So it's quite a unique place to be in the world in terms of understanding different cultures and, of course, different people's beliefs in the afterlife.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I'm so used to living in America, and we have our own set of beliefs, but to actually witness a whole different culture and find the common threads to them. And now your books and what you've been up to, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, you lead large seminars and workshops, and I believe you work with people individually. Maybe you can talk just a little bit about your business before we get into the afterlife conversation.
Okay, well, essentially, Sandra, most of my friends know me as a course junkie. That I love learning. I'm a seeker, searcher, explorer, traveler. And so I know I always say to people, I've read thousands of books, continue to do so. And I've also been on a lot of courses, what I call a lot of the ologies and therapies. But what I found was that some of the courses work some of the time for some of the people and not all of the time for all of the people, and I wondered if somewhere out there was a kind of like, there was a sort of one size fits all, and yet we are all unique. And so when I came across NLP, I remember, and by the way, it stands for neuro-linguistic programming, bit of a mouthful. Best way for me to describe it is as the user manual for your mind. It's how you work as a human being. And when I came across it, I knew I'd come across something different. And I knew that because I took quantum leaps forward in my own life, both personally and professionally. So, I immediately signed up to go sort of the whole route so I could share these tools and techniques with as many people as possible. And I still believe, even though I've been running these seminars and workshops for a long, long time now, the people are always different. There's always more to share. In that it's such a good foundation, in that we didn't come with a manual, or maybe we did and we forgot it. And so, some people are floundering and not understanding why they have certain patterns of thinking and behavior or responding in situations. So getting to know your unconscious mind and your conscious mind, and also different brainwave states of how you can access different information, how we work as a human being. Personally, I think it's a great foundation program for everybody, period, in life, to understand how you work, how you communicate to yourself, how you relate to other people. And the great thing about it is it has some very quick change techniques. I always think about a plug in a socket. If you put a plug in a socket, it's going to respond, or the energy is going to come through in a certain way. All good and well if it's working, but if it's not working, you really need to take the plug out of the socket and plug it into a new socket. And if you think we've got billions and billions of neural connections running inside of us at any given time, and some of those neural connections get us the results that we want, and some of them don't. So be able to literally be able to pull the plug out of those neural connections and get neurons to wire and fire together in a new way, quickly and rapidly, is really wonderful. And I so enjoy seeing people really, taking control of their life and, finding new ways to relate to people, to have the relationship that they wanted, to, get the motivation that they need to set up their business. I'm very blessed in the people who attend our programs, really, because as a trainer, as a facilitator, as a speaker, we can only open the door for people. And isn't that really what you're doing, Sandra, with this beautiful show and concept that you have, to open the door for people to listen and learn and grow, and hopefully switch on some light bulbs that encourages them to step out and go and find out a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. And it's transformational. I know what you mean about being a seminar junkie. And although I haven't read thousands of books, I have attended many really great seminars, and some not so great, and workshops.
Yes.
But one of the common denominators I find is that once you leave the event, it doesn't stay real. And I do remember going to a workshop on NLP, I think it was last year, and just some of the visualizations we went through, and although it was only a weekend workshop, what I loved about it is that it seemed like I had new habits that were autopilot, and it wasn't one of those things where it just felt good during the weekend. So life-changing.
That's the beauty. Yeah, that's the beauty. You're kind of discovering what lies beneath the hard drive, of you,
Yes.
and recognizing patterns and behaviors where, 95% of us, is driven by those patterns already installed at the unconscious level.
Right.
And okay, so your conscious mind is the gatekeeper. But again, this is where a lot of personal development programs are only focused on, it's good, as you said, it's good while you're there, but you're only making changes at the conscious level. And that's hard work as well. That's, where it takes 20 days to make or break a new habit, and it's hard work. And whereas when you're working and partnering with your unconscious mind, change can happen in an instant. It really can. So it does have a ripple effect in many areas of your life. And it's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, maybe at the end of the episode, if you're willing, you could lead us through maybe a brief visualization. Would you be willing to do that?
I'll see.
Yeah, if not, it's okay. I know you have some resources that we can talk about at the end.
Yes, I do have some resources, actually, which there's some wonderful visualizations which people can download from one of our websites. So I'll give you the link for that, maybe easier.
Yeah. Plus, we want to talk about life after death and empowering us all to have a powerful life, as that's usually the context of this show. So, Carol, why do you believe that we don't die?
Isn't that a wonderful question?
Mm-hmm. And I know you've done some various things, so I know that's a big question, but Yeah, I do believe you believe that there's more to us than meets the eye, and
And so do, I mean, if you look at the statistics, Sandra, you know, most religions and most cultures believe in some sort of life after death. Now, obviously, there's some people, a lot of people out there, and maybe a lot of your listeners are clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, you know, so they have that psychic uh, experience and know there's more and know or have connections with people on the other side. I'm not clairaudient, clairsentient, clairvoyant. I'm what people tend to call a knower. And it's when you just know in your gut that something is. So it's never been something that I've had to really question very much. It's just something that is for me. And I always remember, this goes back to when I was leaving the UK. I didn't know I was going to be leaving the UK. And I've been through a very challenging phase. And I'd started going to a group called the Brahma Kumaris. Kindest people I've ever met, Sandra. And I used to get up about 4:35 in the morning, drive a long way to get there. You had to go through certain classes before you could join their sort of regular meditations. And just everything that they said just resonated with me at that time. I also believe our beliefs change as we grow, learn, evolve.
yes.
Different things sit better with us. But for me at that time, everything they said just was and felt right. And it got me through, they got me through a real challenging situation to a large degree when I came up with a couple of opportunities to move overseas. One of the reasons I came to this part of the world was there was a Brahma Kumaris group here, so I could continue that meditation, which I did probably for another year or so. And then you, as I said, learn, grow, and evolve. But I think that highlights to me that sense of, you know, you go to a group, they say certain things, and you know, there's that little voice when you go to maybe a training program that says, I don't think so. And then there's that other little voice that says, yes, this sits well with me. I went to a talk a couple of nights ago, and I was so excited because some of the things that were being said, I was just like making connections inside. And it was like, yes, yes, yes. It was like sparks going off. And so I feel, you know, many people, when they have this belief of the afterlife, it just is. It just is. And of course, my mother was probably a great influence on me. I was very blessed, had lovely, lovely parents, but my mother was started to be interested in more esoteric subjects. And she tells me that she used to take the train up to London in her sort of normal clothes and then change into sort of hippie gear in the toilets up at Waterloo Station, go to philosophy classes with Gurdjieff and listen to all those kind of philosophers, and then quickly change again and come back home. But she also had a lot of friends who were psychics, psychic artists. To be honest with you, Sandra, at that time when I was young, I was a little bit frightened. I was scared of the dark. I used to sleep with a nightlight. And that introduced me to that kind of thing at a very young age.
That's great. Not the fear, but it's, yeah, I would have, well, I think all of our journeys are perfect, just how we have them. But just thinking of the benefit of living life with the confidence and that knowing from early age.
Yes, and I guess that planted seeds that sort of created more curiosity in me, despite being a little bit scared of things at that time. And I was also gifted in the fact that my mother and parents, sorry, I speak about my mother because she's still alive, my father isn't. And my mother or my parents gave me the gift of choosing my own beliefs. You know, we weren't forced into any particular religion or beliefs. It was very open. And I'm often told that I was probably one of those babies that looked up at my parents, you know, from the cot, you know, thinking, you don't know what you're doing. And I do believe that every generation supersedes the previous one in that, you know, children really are the gifts that are here to teach us, you know, and I think we see that with the way so many children are diagnosed with attention deficit disorder now. I'm not sure how you have an attention deficit. And really, it's just that, they learn so quickly and, and in a different way than, maybe we did. So that really they have many gifts to share with us as we move into this new energy, these new times.
I'm just thinking about some of the stories that I've heard about children, and of course, we all know when we're children, our minds are wide open, and we find life an adventure, and we want to play, and we don't want to sleep. And then something happens when we get a little older, and we start listening to some of the negative thoughts in our minds. But I've heard so many stories about young children who remember a past life.
Yes, there's lots of studies on that now, I believe.
There sure are, and that they're tapped into God, source, whatever you want to call it, and yeah, how easy it might be to diagnose a child as different and give it another term, but realizing that these are pure souls, and giving them a chance to speak and be heard and nurturing that, as opposed to thinking, well, there's something wrong with them and giving them some medication.
Well, it allows that channel, that connection to stay open, as long as possible. Whereas I think most of us, that channel, that connection gets shut down. And, it's often when people have a near-death experience, it sort of opens, it opens them up to, oh my goodness, and to a remembrance of who we truly are.
Carol, have you had, I don't think you've had a near-death experience. I was reading just a little bit on your website, but have you had an out-of-body experience or something that
Yes, a number of different experiences. I remember, I'm sure you've read the Michael Newton books, Life Between Lives.
Yes.
And of course, being a trainer of hypnosis, often people want to come for hypnosis for past life regression. And I also do something called timeline therapy. My question is always, for what purpose? Is you want to link into or find a sort of genetic or ancestral line where there's maybe a block and heal it up now? But I became interested in Michael Newton's books, and I just thought they were so fascinating that I was immediately compelled to find somebody when I next went back to the UK who could take me through a life between life session. And it was really, it was quite, it's one of those experiences that's almost beyond words, Sandra. I don't know if you've ever had a life between life session.
Not.
No. So she was a wonderful woman, and again did a nice hypnotic induction. And what happens is they take you back to a previous lifetime. You share a little about it, and then they take you to the point of death. And it was quite bizarre. And I say this because I always have also a healthy degree of skepticism.
Good.
Which is, again, the reason why I like to seek, search, and, I look for those experiences as well. And so I do recall in that experience, when she took me to the death process, I could hardly breathe. And I knew I was passing over, and it was something to do with, a chest infection, coughing or anything. I was, a poor young woman, and I've been heartbroken and whatever. So it wasn't a particularly nice lifetime, and it wasn't an easy death. It wasn't long though. But I do remember at the time that it was almost like I couldn't breathe. And then suddenly it was like, whoosh, everything cleared. And so then you're guided through the death experience, and it was almost as if I couldn't wait to be free. And then you also get to meet your soul group and ask questions. So it's an opportunity to also ask questions about your soul purpose, in what ways you may have chosen this specific lifetime, and what you came here to do or to be or to share. So it was very enlightening, and I know I'm not sharing too much about it because, as I said, some of those powerful experiences are beyond words, and I know we have hundreds of thousands of words at our disposal, but those experiences, and many of your listeners who've had these kind of experiences will also empathize with me that, people just will say, well, what was it like? What was it like? And it's beyond words. And some of the other experiences I've had have also been beyond words, but really incredible, that start to open you up. So some of the other experiences that I really had, and I would say one of the most profound experiences of my life was with some of the indigenous medicines. And some people are for those, some people are against them, and I know they're illegal in many parts of the world. But I had the opportunity to spend time with a tribe in Ecuador. They're called the Achua tribe. They're a dream culture.
Wow.
And I went with the Pachamama Alliance, which is an NGO, a charity, and we went to a very, when you fly in, you're going into the middle of the world. The heart and lungs of the world, and if the weather permits, you can fly in, and if the weather doesn't permit, you fly out. And we were with a tribe who very rarely come out of the rainforest. Do not see many people from the Western world, and we got an opportunity to spend time with them and share some of their traditions. And as I said, they are a dream culture, so they get up early every morning, and then they drink a sort of tea made of the plants. And they drink and drink and drink until their sort of belly really expands, and then they purge. Because often in our culture, purging is a bad thing, but in their culture, it's a good thing to get rid of any parasites, bacteria, to cleanse your system. And then they all sit round the fire and they share their dreams. And of course, their dreams in their model of the world and our dreams from our model of the world are just so different.
Sure. So
different because of their experiences. So that was a very powerful experience. But then we also had the opportunity to do ayahuasca. Now, we fasted all day. We were split into different groups. I was with a very, very small group, just 6 of us. And we'd fasted all day. We were trekking, or we were in the rainforest. We were left by ourselves in the rainforest. Wow. Imagine that, being left in the middle of the world, completely alone. And I'm sure some of your listeners are saying, oh, but what about all the creepy crawlies and the animals and the bugs?
Yes.
But, well, I normally would have been frightened. And again, I wasn't, because, the animals don't want to see you, and you don't want to see them, so you just don't. And then we were led then, when we came out of the rainforest, to a beautiful clearing that I still classify as one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in my life. And our shaman was called Sumpa. And we sort of each picked a banana leaf. And I don't know if you've done one of these experiences.
No.
And I wasn't sure what to expect. Many people read up on these experiences. And sometimes I do. And sometimes I think it's best to go in with an open heart and an open mind.
Yes.
And that's what I went with. And this is when I did actually die, Sandra, because when I was going through the experience, I felt that I needed to die. And so I kept holding my breath to kind of like die. But every time I held my breath, there came that moment where I had to go
right,
and grab my breath again. And so again, it was almost instinctive. I knew I had to die, and I knew the shaman wanted me to die. So I imagined myself drowning, and I just drowned. So when you say, have I had a sort of death experience, in some ways that was it. I died, so a part of me sort of died, and then the visions started. And for me, my visions were so profound that they still guide me to this very day, and this is what, 7-8 years later, because I wanted to know what they meant. The shapes I'd seen, which linked to sacred geometry, which leads to the vector equilibrium, which leads to Metatron's cube, which leads to the flower of life, which leads to creation, which leads to sound. I mean, they still guide me, Sandra. So in some ways, did I have a near-death experience? I died in a way that allowed me to be reborn. And I feel that in many ways, so many of us have had near-death experiences, not in the way that we've had a bad accident or an illness or disease, However, we've all had times in our life when we've hit, that block, that barrier, that crisis, or we've been unwell. And most of us are like, we just want to be well. We just want to be better. We just want to be out of this sort of doo-doo or whatever. It's when we want things to go back the way they were. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's often in chaos and crisis that creates the evolution. And that's where, for many of us, where our heart and soul, our mind is wanting that desire to learn more, to be more, to see more of the afterlife, the other side, to feel a deeper connection. And so sometimes these experiences where we're ill or create chaos in our life, or we have a financial fall, a physical fall, a relationship crash, it actually creates that evolution. It's like a mini death where we get the opportunity to be reborn and evolve and grow and have a deeper connection with who we truly are.
I've read many, many times that we get the most growth for our soul through suffering and through the toughest times, and that makes perfect sense. And it's totally
it's a bit of a shame, though, isn't it, that we can't learn as much through those, when the last time I was unwell, which is very, very rare, and it's like, well, you're going through a growth process. It's like, oh, couldn't I have done this in a positive way?
I know. And I'm sure there are some, but no, it is what it is, right? Let me just ask you, Carol, you had said that your experience doing the life between lives was beyond words. And also I can imagine your visions from 7 or 8 years ago working with the dream culture, with the tribe, similar. But your memory of them, is it like super clear? And the only reason I ask this is I've spoken with many, many people who have had near-death experiences, and they say the same thing. It's beyond words, but yet they remember them so crystal clear, more so than any other memory. Is that similar to your experience?
Yes, there's certain parts of it that are so clear. When I was with the Achua tribe, I did write down everything the next day, mm-hmm. And again, when you describe what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, people are just going to look at you and go, ooh, because again, it doesn't kind of make sense. And of course it doesn't make sense because, you're in a place. So when you're doing a life between life session, time ceases to exist. We're not in a space and time go together. So if you're walking across the room, that's the space, and it takes time to walk from one side of the room to the other. But of course, when you're going into other, whether it's the astral plane, the etheric fields, time collapses, space collapses. So you're seeing everything, in almost at one time. So when you're wanting to explain it, you're stretching it out. So there's certain things that really stick with you. Certain things that I saw really stick with me when I was from the rainforest that I wrote down. I also drew, and certain memories from that life between life still stick with me. So like the people you've interviewed before, yes, and it's just hard to put into words. The other year I was in Mexico, and I kept hearing the sound beyond the sound. There was music playing, and I didn't dare move because I could hear another sound. And some people say this is the music of the spheres. I so wanted to sort of sit up and say, can you hear that? Surely you can hear it. And I didn't dare, Sandra, because I didn't want it to stop, because it was so beautiful. It was just so beautiful.
It's incredible.
And of course, all of us go to the astral and different planes at night when we sleep and dream. The challenge is, unfortunately, most of us do not remember it. As a teacher, and I know this through one of my spiritual mentors, she said, oh, you teach at night school. And she said, you've been to my classes as well. So every teacher teaches at night. And she's challenged me to sort of, set my intention of what I'm going to teach at night school. Now, again, I share with you nice, healthy degree of skepticism here, Sandra. Mm-hmm. However, when I am more aware that I'm teaching at night school, in other words, when I'm dreaming, I'm also running classes, but I also sometimes want to attend classes. And once you become more aware that this is what happens when you are a teacher, you'll find that when people come to your classes or your courses or for sessions, they say, I dreamt of you last night.
Interesting.
And of course they did, because they came to one of your classes.
Huh. I've not heard this before.
So isn't that a wonderful way to learn? That it means that if you're going to a course, then you can say, well, let me go to this teacher's night school, so that when I go to the program, some of it will already sort of ring true with me. It's like I would have heard some of it before. So, yes, most teachers teach at night on the astral levels.
And this makes sense because, we'll talk a bit about being human, but I do believe we are souls that have a human body, but there's so much more. But I don't think our souls need to sleep at night. And why not continue the soul growth while the body rests?
And I also believe that, we are too magnificent, and we cannot, our physical body cannot hold all of us and all our energy. So there's parts of our souls that are going off and doing other things. I was learning, I work with a pendulum as well sometimes, which is a lovely tool, and we often teach it in our hypnosis programs. Nothing woo-woo about it. It's a biofeedback device. Obviously, our thoughts are electric, so it's responding to our thoughts and tapping into a higher level of consciousness. But I went to sort of learn a little bit more about it with something called spiritual response therapy. And I'd also gone for a session with the two women who run this program. And when they said, your part of your soul is off saving a planet, and you'd think my eyebrows would have shot up and gone, so my part of my soul is off saving a planet. And it just sounded right. Whereas other people would have gone, really? And it just sounded right. Yeah, part of my soul is off doing other things. So, again, how wonderful at night to be able to connect with other parts of ourselves, or tap into other realities that we may want to explore. And see if I always think, there's a whole buffet for us to choose from, and we do really create our reality from that buffet. And if the world isn't as you want it right now, or if your life isn't the way you want it, you can work backwards in thinking, well, what's the energy, what's the feelings, and what's the thoughts that I must be thinking to create this reality? And then, literally setting an intention at night, or when you meditate or visualize, to think of it like a buffet and what you'd like to start placing in your world, because we are all energy. I think it was Carl Sagan, wasn't it, who said we're all made of stardust.
Yes.
That we're all connected to everything. And, if we're energy, and energy creates matter, and that energy, starts oscillating and vibrating at a certain frequency and speed, and with the light, and we start forming crystals at the etheric level, and then, it comes down and comes into matter.
I so believe this. Yeah, even just thinking that we are all just made up of vibrating energy right now, with the illusion that we're real, right? I often say, if you put a small camera into one of our atoms that make up our cells and our being, it wouldn't pick up anything, because all we are is vibrating energy. It's hard for the mind to get around, but I think it's important, because once we get or embrace that life after death is real, it's like, okay, well then what's this life about? And I love what you're speaking now, that we can actually create it. And maybe we can get into your latest book, and because I'm guessing that's what you're passionate about sharing, and you include a bunch of things in it. Can we talk about it, or maybe even both books?
Yes, absolutely. And it is, the tagline on the book, the book's called You, the Divine Genius, but the tagline is, you are more than you think you are.
Love it.
We are more than our thoughts. And this is book one. So it really sort of strays quite a sort of a gamut of subjects. So it starts first with, your universe. This is how you experience the world through your five senses. You've got the brain in your head, so brain intelligence, heart intelligence, gut intelligence, even cell intelligence. And, so to sort of put into context of how we really experience the world, yet it, with all the intelligence within us, it begs the question that there's more, because, if you look at a paraplegic, well, that means that the spinal cord has been cut, then they shouldn't be able to. Why is their heart still beating? Why are they still able to digest food? Or, there's a greater intelligence at work. And so I wanted to give people the structure of this is how you currently experience the world. And then what do you need to let go of? What do you need to unlearn? And you may have read that I often run firewalks, breakthrough events. And people often say, why? Do we need more firewalkers in the world? Well, probably not, Sandra. But what it does show is the human potential, because it's a belief that most of us have been taught that if you touch fire or walk across burning hot coals of 1700 degrees centigrade, then, you'll be seriously hurt. And yet, I often get people come to these events and say, well, I'm not going to do it. And it's like, fine, sign the waiver anyway. But within a couple of hours, they're walking back and forth across those burning hot coals. And again, we go back to energy, because one of the African tribes says, when your energy matches the energy of the fire, you will walk across unharmed. But more than that is it shows the human potential and the power of our beliefs and our beliefs of who we truly are. Because if you can do that, it begs the question, what else can you do in your life?
Right.
So again, we need to start unlearning some of these patterns that we've been taught by society, through imprints, through our ancestors, through genetics. And again, look at what they're learning about, there's epigenetics, that you don't have to be tied by your genes anymore. When you heal yourself, you can actually heal down the ancestral line. So again, those are some of the areas that I talk about. And then as we move through the book, I start talking about exploring. And exploring means exploring different brainwave cycles, because different information is available at different brainwave cycles. So, most of us live life in beta, which is a very narrow bandwidth of information. And probably because at school we were told, pay attention, don't look out the window and daydream.
Right.
Yet actually, where does inspiration and imagination come from when we're in alpha? And, learning doesn't take place in beta. The learning state is alpha, when we're sort of relaxed and you've switched or partially suspended your conscious mind with the analyzing, criticizing, judging. So I talk about hypnosis as well, and then going into theta, delta. A lot of people are very into theta healing, has become very, very popular. Again, dropping into a different brainwave cycle, different information is available at different brainwave cycles. And then you get certain gurus in delta that when they're sort of wired up, if they put an open book in another room and there's a wall between them and that other room, they can still read what's on the open book.
Really?
When asked why, yes, when they're asked why, they just say there are no barriers.
Wow.
There's no barriers, there's no walls. So this is when, we're in a dimension of frequency whereby our body appears solid. So again, when you're changing and go into dimensional mastery, then sort of your reality changes, because things don't necessarily need to appear so solid. So I talk about, exploring different brainwave cycles, whether that's through hypnosis. Shamanic journeying is also another area that I explored, because with shamanic journeying, they had the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. And it's such a quick way to access information. And often when I was writing the book, I'd often do a quick 15-minute shamanic journeying. They use a certain drumming beat that's very quick, that shifts your brainwave state very, very quickly. And then afterwards, when I'd come out of that, having got my response, I'd go into automatic writing, which is basically where you put pen to paper and you just write. So it's not, putting your pen to paper and expecting the pen to move. I know there are some people who can do that,
Right.
but this is where maybe you have a particular question in mind, or you pick a certain card and you look at the image and you just start writing, no judgment. And it's incredible, Sandra, what you find you've written when you go to read it afterwards, but not judging it while you write it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say, shamanic journeying, there's visualization, there's meditation, there's hemisync, where, it's wonderful for stimulating and dropping you into different brainwave cycles with sound. But shamanic journeying is very quick in terms of getting answers, 15 minutes, and kind of like you've got the answer that you want.
Can the average person go on a shamanic journey?
Yes, it's not difficult.
How?
There's, as I said, they believe in the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. And the shamans have created certain pathways that allow you to find your way into the lower world, the middle world, or the upper world. Now, the lower world is if you've got sort of a question that you want answered, which may be a little bit more esoteric. The middle world, which is sort of the now, is if maybe you've lost your keys or something like that. The upper world would be if you want to connect with your guides or go to with angels, archangels, that sort of thing. So you choose what sort of question you have or what you want to ask. And then, as I said, the shamans have created certain specific journeys, pathways that you go through, that literally once you've done them, they sound complicated, but once you've done them once, you can do it literally. I can get to the lower world in probably 15 seconds or less, and I'm there.
Very cool. Do you talk more about this in your book, by the way?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I don't give the specific shamanic routes because that wouldn't be ethical to do that.
Yeah, I understand.
And they're not difficult. And I was very blessed. I spoke to an amazing woman. She was called Michelle Karen. It was for an astrology reading with a difference. And I knew that because within the first few moments when it was over the phone, the astrology reading, she said, the first thing she said was, well, Carol, you've had many lifetimes as a high priestess. And I thought, this is a different kind of astrological reading. But one that I thought, well, I'm like this.
Yes.
And it was so fascinating. But I shared with you that I'm not clairaudient or clairvoyant. And I've always wanted, for many years, I wanted that kind of like the bells and the whistles, let me see everything. And to be okay with that's not my path. And she was the one who suggested shamanic journeying. And because she takes people on shamanic journeying, I had another session where she actually gave me the journey paths into the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. And subsequently, I went on a few shamanic courses to sort of just clarify that journey, get my power animals and things like that. So it's simple, it's easy, very powerful. Very powerful. So I talk a little about that in the book. And then, of course, the last part of the book goes into creating a new universe. So this is where I go into sacred geometry, where so many people think, yes, nice shapes. So what?
Yes, I have no idea what sacred geometry is. Although, I've just said that. So what? Nice shapes.
Yes, because they are. It's like, I think I'll buy that pendant. It's the flower of life. And, look at that one. But what does it actually mean? What does it actually do?
Yes.
And so, for me with the book, I wanted to make profound subjects simple. And what I even found myself with sacred geometry, you can dig yourself into a ditch because it goes on and on and on, because really it reflects the universe. And you've got the microcosm and the macrocosm. So on the front of my book and throughout the book, I use the image of the spiral, because the spiral, as I said, you can go infinitely small and you're always going outwards as well, which is isn't that what we're doing in life? We're continually growing and expanding. It's never we arrive at a destination. Most people say, life is a journey.
Yes.
I believe it's a dance. Because if it's a journey, you're waiting to get somewhere. So if it's a dance, then you're in it at every moment. You're being present, which is what Eckhart Tolle talks about in the Power of Now. So I talk about sacred geometry and again how it's reflected in everything in the universe. Then I go into sound, frequency and vibration, because it's sound that creates form. So it's sound that brings form, and again with the field of cymatics, and if you do some Google research on cymatics, there's some wonderful videos there that show you that sound creates form. And cymatics gives you a visual demonstration of what sound or frequency actually does. So, for example, Sandra, I've got sound bowls, those Tibetan metal sound bowls.
Yes.
If I put water and fill those sound bowls with water and then use the mallet around the edge or the outside of the bowl, and it's a shame you can't see me because I'm actually doing this with my hand right now.
Okay.
But as the bowl begins to vibrate, the water in the bowl also vibrates and starts showing certain shapes. Now, if you do that with, say, a metal sheet and put sand on the sheet and then key in a frequency on that metal plate with sand on it, the sand will start vibrating and form the beautiful shapes that you see in sacred geometry.
Oh.
And again, Dr. Masaru Emoto
Yes.
did many experiments where he showed this is the power of our thoughts of vibration, our emotions of vibration and frequency. Our words carry a certain frequency and vibration. So, mind your language. Your language is more powerful than you'd know. Even the rose is a very high vibration flower. So if you're working with, any essences, rose essence is a very high frequency. So again, I start to introduce people to the concept of sound, frequency and vibration. Sound creates matter. And then, of course, going into, the law of attraction. And, so many people say, yes, I get it, the law of attraction. I just need to sort of get in vibrational alignment. And the question is, how? How do I get in vibrational alignment?
Yes.
So again, getting back to, there's a lovely book by, I think his name was Richard Dawkins, Power versus Thought. And he worked in the field of kinesiology.
Yeah.
And kinesiology used muscle testing,
right.
Which again links into the body's intelligence. And, he showed the vibration of certain feelings that we emit. I'm very sad to say, and I talk about this in the book, one of the emotions that most people find so difficult is love. And hold that feeling
yes.
and that vibration of love. And I spoke to one of my dear friends. He's in Canada. He's called David Gross. He's a channel. And I was very blessed because I said, well, how do you channel? And this is what most people want to know. I said, how do you get into that vibrational alignment? And he had such a close relationship with his mother. He said, so what I do is I think of my mother. I feel the essence of my mother and the excitement of, for many of us, it could be a mother, but it could be a lover or a partner, a love partner, and that feeling of being in love, and that immediately puts him into vibrational alignment. So I cover, all those areas, right from this is how you experience the world now through your five senses, with your brain, with your heart, with your cells, all the way through to sacred geometry, sound, frequency, and vibration. And as I said, this is just book one. But my goal, my intention was to start getting people to, again, realize that you are more than you think you are. Your energy vibrating at a certain frequency. And once you start to shift that energy, and this is where chaos and crisis comes along, that it's unfortunately some of those negative experiences. But the positive from those perceived negative experiences is they shake up your energy. And that's often when we have our largest and biggest evolution. So rather than thinking, oh, this is bad, it's actually embrace those times that they are offering you the biggest opportunity to grow, to evolve, and find a deeper connection with the afterlife, with soul, creator, source. We are creators.
It's interesting, Carol. Often when I've looked back at some of my toughest times in my life, I can see now, so many years beyond that I needed that to happen in order for this to happen and to be where I am now. So And when you're in the
They're,
midst
they're
of
a
the
gift.
chaos and crisis, might not feel so good. But if we can have that trust and bring love to it, um,
And also see them as a gift, that they
yes.
are a present in the
Oh,
present.
wow. Let me ask you a question. Holding the vibration of love, you've made me just start visualizing and feeling some people I love and even a pet that I loved and lost. But to hold that feeling of love, and then you had said earlier, picking from the buffet, to choose some empowering things as opposed to some of the negative thoughts in the mind. Would adding the vibration of love on top of visualizing something we want to have, or kind of using the law of attraction on our benefit, it would things go smoother if we added the vibration of love into making things happen in our life?
Absolutely. And this is where, unfortunately, many of us are numb to our feelings. I mean, I even have some people that I know who are on antidepressants, which, what do? They just sort of flatline you. And so the unfortunate thing is that many of us, you know, cannot create the feeling before it actually happens.
Mm.
And it all starts with our thoughts. It starts with our thoughts and having and setting that intention, and then the feeling. So if love is a little bit too much, then start with feelings of certainty or feelings of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes what I sometimes like to call these strawberry moments. When you're eating if you like strawberries,
Yes.
chocolate. Think of a strawberry dipped in chocolate as a strawberry moment, and think of maybe when good things happen to you, writing that down. So you've got a list of experiences that you can sort of look at that put you in those resourceful states again, and start operating from that vibration. And of course, some of the other ones that you hear again and again and again, and I'm still going to say it again: forgiveness and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness and gratitude are, again, hold such a high frequency and vibration. They really do. And the nice thing on like attracts like. So there's a lovely experiment on vibration, that when you play a particular string on a guitar, another guitar will vibrate at the same frequency. But if you stop one guitar, if you hold the strings, does the other one stop? Well, it keeps going, but when you release the first one, it comes back to you. It comes back to the first one. Now, I say that because, again, we've heard this before. What you send out into the world comes right back at you.
Yes.
Everything is a mirror. And there was a wonderful book by a guy called Gary Renard, and it's called The Disappearance of the Universe,
Yes.
and it's based on A Course of Miracles. It's quite a chunky read.
He's been on this show, so he's
has
spoken
he?
it. Yes.
Well, then, again, if you come from the place of there is nothing out there, everything out there is just a reflection. It's a holographic universe. The world is a holograph of me.
Right.
Then that means that everyone that you think has wronged you or anything, it's just a reflection to you as where do you need to forgive? Not that person, you need to forgive yourself as well as that person. And then it disappears, it transmutes. Now, I'm not saying this is easy, and I'm sure Gary Renard also, I know he's had some challenges in his life.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's necessarily easy. And this is, we chose to be here to allow the Creator to create and to be creators. So that doesn't mean that when we have a negative experience, we still created it, but often that ignites the desire for something better as well.
It's funny that you just brought up this about Gary. I had something happen last week, nothing major, but I got really angry at a person. And I kept stewing on it, and of course wanting them to change. And then it hit me that what if I created this for me? Like, nobody else exists. I created this. And talk about having it vanish quickly. I thought, okay, what's the lesson to learn here? why did I create this if no one else exists? And there was self-forgiveness. There was, it was like a mirror back at me. Sometime I had, hurt another person. It was amazing. And whether it's true or not, how fast forgiveness showed up, self-love, love for the other person, and getting over it, you know? Whereas I
Well,
could
you
be
see that with
stewing for
people who
months.
create, are in different relationships, but actually they're having the same relationship again until they recognize the pattern.
Exactly.
Another nice way to do this is to literally put your arm out with your thumb up. So just stretch your right arm out in front of you, put your right thumb up like
Okay.
a sort of like you're hitchhiking,
Yeah.
and then move that around you. And if you think we're part of everything, but if you think, that's you, everything in that bubble, if you put your arm out and draw a sort of circle around yourself, that's you. Everything the other side of your thumb is the theatre, the stage, what you are creating.
Mm.
That's a lovely way to think about, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? The other side of my thumb, that's what I've created. It starts to sort of allow you to think, well, congratulations, Carol, you're a magnificent creator today. Carol, some work needs to be done there.
Exactly.
Or pay attention. And isn't that the deliciousness of being, coming into this dimension to sort of learn, grow, and evolve? And there's always more. There's always more. And that's why I said it's a dance rather than a journey. We're never going to get there.
Yes. And I love that it's a journey. And I also love the dance. I love that there are things like seminars and workshops and even reading your books. It's, we could spend a lifetime and learn a lot for ourselves, but sometimes you read about where someone else has walked, what they have done, and it can really move us up one step higher in our soul evolution. So I'm excited to read your book. I know you've sent it to me. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited.
Okay, I will send it to you.
Yeah.
And for sure I'll send it to you. Yeah.
And just,
no problem.
Time's almost up, but I wanted, if you wouldn't mind, sharing your website and some of the things you offer. And I am interested in, I know we don't have time for visualization now, but looking at those things, because you are out to empower people to live their best life ever. I know you are, just everything I've read about you and what we've talked about, but maybe let us know what are some of the tools that you have available besides your 2 books.
Okay. Well, 2 main websites. So if you go to caroltalbot.me, you can link to the books that I've written. Also my other book, which is called Breaking Through, there'll be a link to download the whole book for free. With You, the Divine Genius, I've kept a link open, Sandra, and I'll keep it open for another month, where if people order the book from Amazon, they'll also get access to about 100 other gifts as well.
We like gifts.
Yes, so do I. And then on my other website, which is my company website for the NLP programs, that is matrix-training.com. So matrix like the movie, and then -training.com. There's only 3 buttons there: NLP, products, and breakthrough events. But if you go to products, there are about 12 different visualizations, hypnotic inductions, relaxation, self-esteem boosters, confidence builders that you can download for free. They're all free.
Thank you for that.
Well, I think free is nice.
Free is nice.
And I'd also just like to say, as much as you said, it's about living our best life ever, yes, we want to make this life our best, and remembering that we've all had many, many, many other lifetimes, and there's, many different ways and wonderful people out there who are also helping us tap into resources from other lifetimes that we can use now. And we tend to, because we live in a linear world of past, present, future, it's all there. We're living other realities right now that we can tap into and bring those resources now. So, for people who do want to write a book and feel they haven't got the resources, tap into another lifetime where you did.
That is amazing that that's possible.
I'm sure it is.
Amazing. Carol Talbot, thank you for being our guest today.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for being such a wonderful host. Thank you so much for creating this platform and sharing.
Oh, you're most welcome. I am left from this conversation wanting more and wanting to do some more research and I think that's the best gift because, like you had said at the beginning, what resonates with you? What's the truth to you? You go to so many different things, and what holds true. And I think for each one of us to find our own truths, to find that
Yes.
thing that inspires us, and to go for it. And I know for myself, I love these adventures, and I love miracles, and I love synchronicities, and I love just even the thought of adding or holding the vibration of love, and that's going to feel good and to produce some results and to create things in the world. I mean, what could be better than that?
Well, I think we're both in a nice feeling now because we're both inspired by the conversation. Hopefully
Yes.
your listeners will be, that they'll be holding a great vibration and frequency and emitting that into the world because they feel good as a result of listening to these shows.
Awesome. And I want to remind our listener that you can visit Carol's website, talbot.me, or simply go to we-don't-die-radio.com, click on episode 146. And the books that she mentioned and the resources and her websites are all linked to that page on we-don't-die-radio.com, episode 146. So with ease, you can connect and order her book or do one of her free downloads, whatever you need, it's there. So in closing, I first of all want to thank Carol for being here. I want to thank Carol for her inspiration and for the difference that you're making on planet Earth in so many lives. And for you, our listener, thank you for spending this last hour with us. And as Carol just mentioned, this episode and others, my goal at the end of each one is to leave each one of us empowered to live our life with some new tools, to go for it, to feel good, to know that you're not alone, to know that life after death is a reality. Your loved ones are just fine. You're going to meet up again. This life is for you. So in closing, I just want to say thank you for being here. My name is Sandra Champlain, and I've been your host on We Don't Die Radio. And I do believe with all my heart that life is an education for the soul. And as Carol says, life is a dance. It's not a journey. It's a dance. I love that. Our lives here on Earth are important. So I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.